Good afternoon. It's once again, it's Friday, and I just came from Chinatown, and so in honor of my visit to Chinatown, I wore a Chinese shirt. I have not been able to determine what the reading on it is, but that's all right. Chinese is a great language, and as I was there, it occurred to me how great it would be if all of us knew several different languages. And if we knew several different languages, we'd be in good shape. But if not, we try and communicate the best way that we can. And it's always a pleasure to communicate with you on a Friday afternoon. There are so many different things that are going on. I've had just a magnificent week. And actually, even today, I've just had great meetings with individuals. Breakfast meeting with Dr. Wasi Khan, who is the president of East West University. I met with Mr. Ardale Mannings, who had been in employee relations over at Rush Presbyterian St. Luke's Hospital. I had a meeting in Chinatown with the granddaughters of Alderman George Hagopian, who used to be the alderman of the 30th Ward, and I was alderman of the 29th Ward, and Alderman Hagopian and I became great friends, and we just had a wonderful time. And I think they're trying to tell me that I'm covering up the listening to the people sign, but that's all right. It's there and it's fine, and you don't necessarily have to see it. If you see it, that's good. But it does say listening to the people. And Alderman Hagopian and I just established a great relationship while we were in the city council. And his granddaughters saw a photograph of us, and one just graduated from the University of Las Vegas, and the other one is a senior at the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana, and the woman who used to be my secretary was in town. And we just had ourselves a wonderful discussion. And they are two of the most outstanding young ladies that I know. We've got a call, so I'll just go right to the phones and see what my listener has to say.
Good evening, Dr. Davis, U.S. Representative 7th District. I'm just going to make a few comments about what's happened on the streets of Chicago in terms of violence. And some people may want to get on board in terms of what I'm thinking. If you remember a couple years ago, I was one of the first people hollering about bringing in the National Guard. Do you recall that?
I do recall that.
People said that I was crazy. Now, some of the people that say I was crazy, now they want the National Guard to come in. And
to do what?
Some of the people that said they didn't want to have the National Guard in, now they want the National Guard in. What I'm saying is this: we need to take a common sense type approach. And there's an old proverb, and it goes something like this: measure twice, cut once. And what I mean by taking a common sense approach is this. Number one, we can have what you call stop and question. Now, there's a difference between stop and question and stop and frisk. If you stop someone out there and you can find out whether or not that person's on probation or they're on parole, and if they is on probation or parole, guess what? They can be searched. And if you know that you are in one of those status and you out there in the street with a firearm, there is a good chance that you're going to be stopped. And I'm just saying some common sense. And then it may make sense in certain hot spots of Chicago. It may make sense to have a curfew. Because why? People are being hurt. People are being killed. And I'm just talking about using a common sense type of approach. I also made a prediction. And a lot of people that wasn't for having those cameras on the police, now when we have those cameras on the police, guess what? We be able to know what they're doing. And they won't be getting paid, if you understand what I'm saying, in that look away money. Now we can use a common sense type approach, or we can keep putting our heads in the sand. I know Steve out there, he jumped on board now and said we need to have the National Guard. What I'm saying is we need to use a common sense approach in terms of dealing with the subject matter at hand. And I just want to hear your comment. I want to get off.
All right. Well, let me just tell you, I'd like to know what the National Guard would do. I mean, I think that much of the violence that we are experiencing is because people are mentally disjointed, because people are poor, people are hungry, people have lost hope, people have given up, they don't have a good projection for the future, they're unemployed. I think all of these factors contribute to the violence. But I think the factor contributing the most is a lack of guidance, early guidance, where people are taught that violence never solved anything, where people are taught that it's better to give than it is to receive, that people are taught that you receive what you put out. So I hear the talk about the National Guard, but I don't know what it is that the National Guard would be doing except helping to establish a police state. I'm not interested in living in a police state. I'm not interested in living in an oppressive environment. And so I'm one of those that would be opposed to bringing in the National Guard, because I don't know what it is that the National Guard would actually do. But I am in favor of improving education. I am in favor of redistributing some of the wealth in our nation so that other people than the top 1% or the top 10% or even the top 20% would have a feeling that they're going to be able to do all right and live well. Caller, let's see if you're there.
Yes, Congressman, and it's a great day to be on God's green earth today. And Joe mentioned my name, which Steve, this is the other Steve, Joe. What I thought about, one day I kind of got really upset. You get tired of reading the paper, hearing the news. Sometimes you said, oh, well, maybe there should be, some guards should be here. But reality seems to come back to you. Number one, how they going to get paid? That's number one. Are you going to kick any extra money in to have this? Number two, what we plan on doing? Have a National Guard station at every corner of every street? That's not sensible, man. And the most important thing, I remember back in Iraq, do you remember those gang signs that was on the tanks? So some of them is some of us that's out there. The point being is, Joe, listen, I feel you. I don't know what could be done. There's nothing. it got to a point. And listen, and the question, stop and ask questions. Are you a parolee? Nope. Are you a murderer? Nope. Then what do? You don't have the right to just to check you out. And then you got to remember the almighty pen. He could say he saw a bulge in his pants and went on and shot you. You know, so many questionable things about that. You got to remember, officers want to come home from their job just like anybody else. People want to get back on home and see their family. All police is not bad, but you got some bad ones too, just like you got some bad neighbors. But again, Joe, it's a thing I don't know exactly. They always say about jobs. Half the people don't even want to work. They want to do what they want to do. Never been had farther than second grade of high school, and they want to make a six-figure salary. You give jobs out. People don't come. I heard you one day you went to a job fair, and you was the only person that came. Some people just don't want to do anything. Let's really realize that. They don't want to do nothing. And the ones that do, trust me, they do try to find a way. I don't want to hog the show, Joe. Congressman, I definitely don't want to hog the show. I'd like to say happy holiday to everyone that's listening. Have a safe weekend. You got to be vigilant. Be smart. You see something stupid, don't walk to it. Walk away from it. Listen, and Congressman, you have a great holiday to you and your family, too. Let me get out there so I can hear your response. And thanks for taking the call.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your call. You know, I was just saying to my staff, we had a staff meeting not long ago, that one of the good things about America is that we all have a right to an opinion. We have a right to whatever it is that we think, whatever it is that we feel, and we have the right to express it. I actually believe very strongly in doing what I call accentuating the positive, getting rid of the negative, and not messing around with Mr. In-Between. George O'Hara used to have that as a favorite saying, a slogan of his. I believe that we are always becoming. And yes, people are committing violent acts. People are killing each other. But if we really want to reduce the violence, what we really need to do is reduce the accessible attribution, or keep people from being able to get weapons of war. And if people get weapons of war, then they commit warlike acts. So I think we need to make absolutely certain that nobody, except law enforcement people and military, have access to semi-automatic weapons and automatic weapons. I just don't believe that it's good for anything. They're not good for anything. It's like the song I remember they used to sing, war. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Well, that's what I think these automatic weapons are good for, creating war and warlike activity and warlike behavior. I like the fact that you can't purchase a gun in Chicago legally, and I wish we could make it where you cannot purchase a gun legally in other places as well. That is, if we could reduce the presence of guns, period, I think that we would reduce the numbers of people being killed. But we also have to teach people how to live. You know, I don't sing because I can't sing, not really, but Sometimes when I'm at church, I listen to the lyrics of songs. One say, I've learned to live holy. I've learned to live right. If I live holy, if I live right, I will see the eternal light. I want to see my Jesus. I want to see the man who died for me, the man from Galilee. Well, you're not going to teach everybody anything. But some people know that committing violent acts are against the laws of nature. And as such, they will not do it because they don't want to be against the laws of nature. There are others, if they were just simply taught to love mercy, to do justice, and walk humbly with their Creator, they wouldn't do these things. They just would not do them. So I think that we have lots of avenues and approaches. And maybe it's because I get older that, I'd much rather walk down the street singing just a closer walk with thee. Grant it, Jesus, is my plea. Daily walking close to thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. I'm saying you can't force behavior, but I do believe that you can teach it and you can promote it, and the more we put forth effort to do that, the more likely we're going to be able to reduce violence. I've also been told that ignorance is bliss. And so how can one live with themselves knowing that they have taken the life of somebody else? I mean, how do you live happily ever after knowing that you've snuffed out somebody else's opportunity? And yes, I do believe that we all have rights, but I believe that my rights end where the next person's rights begin. I have a right to space, but I don't have a right to invade your space. I have a right to life, but I don't have a right to deny you your right to life. I have a right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness, but I don't have a right to deny your family and your friends happiness, because when I snuff out your life, they're all going to be sad. They're going to be hurting. They're going to experience pain. And so I think teaching and learning will have a great deal to do with the quality of life that we experience. And while I know the need for law enforcement, I know the need for protection, I'm just not of the opinion that bringing in the National Guard or having some additional law enforcement protection or thinking that we're going to police our way out of the violent behavior we are experiencing in not only our urban communities, but also in our rural and semi-rural communities. And so If we could learn to live by the golden rule and be a friend to each other, so let me live in my house by the side of the road, where the race of men go by, men who are good, men who are bad, wise, foolish, but then so am I. So why would I sit in the scorner's seat or hurl the cynic's ban? Just let me live in my house by the side of the road and be a friend to man. That's how I'd much rather live than to live walking down the streets with my AK-15 or my Uzi or my switchblade or brass knuckles. Live and be a friend to man. I'll see you next week.